In an upcoming preview of an upcoming performance of a musical masterpiece, a director observed that a musical masterpiece has two distinguishing marks: surprise and inevitability. When you hear it, you say, well, who would have ever thought of creating a musical masterpiece like this? And then once you hear it, you say, oh, I see. It had to be that way. Surprise and inevitability. We see that all around us, don't we? Think about the story of the scorpion and the frog, where the frog is about to go across the river and the scorpion says, could I ride on your back? And the frog said, no, you'll sting me and then I'll drown. And the scorpion says, why would I do that? Because if I stung you, we would both drown. Oh, okay, said the frog, hop on. And halfway across the river, the scorpion stung the frog, and as they were going down into the water, the frog said, why did you do that? We're both going to drown. Why would you do that? And the scorpion answered, because it is my nature to sting. Surprise and inevitability. We see it all around us. We are surprised by some things people do, and then we consider the source, and we say, oh, well, why should I be surprised? We're all surprised by something these days, aren't we? I heard a story the other day about a period of time when we used to send telegrams. Some of us are chronologically mature enough to remember telegrams. Maybe you've sent a telegram yourself. The story goes this way. Two men named Ralph Wilson lived on the same street in the same town. And one day in the middle of the summer, one of the Ralph Wilsons died, and the other Ralph Wilson went on a business trip down to South Florida on a very hot day. The living Ralph Wilson sent his wife a telegram, but by accident it was delivered to the home of the deceased Ralph Wilson, whose widow opened the telegram, read it, and fainted because the telegram she received said this: hi, honey, arrived safely. The heat is unbearable. Wish you were here. Surprise and inevitability. We are all surprised by something these days, aren't we? Jesus must have been surprised when he saw the huge crowds as he came into Jerusalem that day. The disciples must have been surprised as well. But why should they be surprised? Everywhere he went, he was like a political candidate. People were crowding around him, whether it was the Sermon on the Mount or preaching or teaching beside the seaside. Everyone was coming around and crowding around Jesus. So this is really nothing new on Palm Sunday. And the Pharisees were nervous about him, but Jesus was surprised to see the huge crowds shouting out, blessed is the one who comes in the name of the Lord. Other texts in Matthew and Mark say, Hosanna, Hosanna, blessed is the one who comes in the name of the Lord. Maybe we shouldn't be surprised that people gather around a religious figure when they want to know more about God. Internationally known New Testament scholar Raymond Brown once lectured in a church I was serving, and he was telling me about going to another town to offer another lectureship. And he arrived at the hotel and was standing at the hotel counter, and the woman behind the counter noticed that he had a clerical collar on. She said, are you a priest? He said, yes, ma'am, I am. She said, oh, great. I want to ask you some Bible questions. Do you know anything about the Bible? And this world's authority on the Gospel of John said, well, yeah, I dabble in it from time to time. And she said, "Oh, great, I've got some very serious Bible questions. I've asked my preacher, but he's no help at all. And I'd like to hear what you think." And so he was trapped there at the counter as she asked him one question after another. But all of a sudden he realized there were 5 or 6 people behind him in line, and he was beginning to get nervous, thinking that they would begin yelling or be upset. But instead they crowded around him and began asking him Bible questions and theology questions too. You see, whenever someone comes to town, like a Raymond Brown or a Brueggemann or a Cynthia Rigby or whoever, or a Jesus, then people have questions. They crowd around. These are ultimately theological questions, because those are the questions we really want to ask, aren't they? They're not really about our stocks or our bonds or our IRAs. No, we are ultimately spiritual beings. And when Jesus comes to town, we got questions, you know? We want to know what he thinks. Tell me, preacher, is it really true about God? Maybe that's why so many people are buying religious books these days and signing up and joining Bible studies and discussion groups by droves. They want to know. Maybe that's why so many people come to worship on Holy Week. You know, Palm Sunday, Easter, there are crowds everywhere. Because we want to know about God, who God is, what God is up to, what difference God makes in our world. We shouldn't be surprised, and Jesus shouldn't have been surprised at the big crowds on that first Palm Sunday. It was inevitable that people would come and shout, "Hosanna, blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord." But it was also just as inevitable that they would run away when they didn't get the answers that they wanted. See, people line up to come to church. People line up when a scholar comes to town to hear this scholar. Imagine if Jesus had written a book, how many people would have lined up to get his autograph. But when they get there and they begin to hear the answers about how hard religious life really is, then they scatter in all directions. They go from Palm Sunday to crucify him. They go everywhere because they find out how much we have to study, how much we have to give, how much we have to change our patterns of behavior. They find out how demanding religious life really is. So when a scholar comes to town and stands around in a hotel lobby, people have questions, but when they don't like the answers, well, they're not sure what to do. We don't really like the answers Jesus gives us, do we? Because we want to keep Jesus in a little box. J.B. Phillips said, "Your God is too small," and it's true. We want to keep Jesus in a place where we can control him. Let's keep Jesus on Sunday morning at 8:45 or 11 o'clock, and then that's it. We don't want to deal with Jesus the rest of the week or the rest of our lives. We just want to come for the Palm Sunday party. You know, just enjoy it. We just want the party, that's all. I heard the other day about a routine Sid Caesar used to do. I'm going way back for those of you who remember Sid Caesar. And it's in a waiting room, a maternity ward. And it's way before Lamaze. It's back when fathers used to just hang out together waiting for the nurse to come announce the birth of that person's child. And Sid Caesar's right there with the other fathers, and then a nurse comes in and announces, "Who's Mr. So-and-so? You have a baby boy," and he cheers, everybody cheers, he passes out cigars. And then another one comes in, and a nurse comes in, and then all the fathers are gone, and the nurse says, "Sir," to Sid Caesar, "is your wife waiting here somewhere to have a baby?" "No," he said, "this is just the place I come to get my cigars. That's all." That's all. See, we just come for the party, you know? That's all we want. Come for the Palm Sunday party. Is that why you're here? You know? And then we just take a hop and a skip and a jump past Maundy Thursday, past Good Friday. Let's just bypass the cross. I mean, who needs the atonement? Who needs the saving work of Jesus Christ? But the story won't let us go. This is the oldest literary device in history. A stranger comes to town and changes the town forever. Here comes Jesus, riding in on a colt. He doesn't even get on the colt himself. He is set on the colt by his disciples, and he comes down your street and mine, to your house and mine. And I don't care what you're bringing to church this morning, maybe some grief, maybe some guilt, something you've been holding on to for a long time, and you need to let it go this morning. He is here, challenging you and forgiving you, all at the same time. Cahill is right. He said Jesus is the man of extravagant generosity, tolerant to the point of foolishness like Don Quixote. He's right there with you and me. His affection is unbelievable. Oh, he's humorous, bold, earthy, and real. He sweats, he spits, he jokes, he loses his temper, and he holds no one at a distance. His affection is beyond belief, and his compassion for those in pain is to the point of death. And the most astonishing thing about this gentle, foolish king who rides into town on a colt is that he is the same one who kindled a little movement, a quirky little movement called Christianity. A movement, by the way, that has transformed the world. And to think, it all began with a palm branch and a cross, a borrowed colt and a borrowed tomb. No other God would have done it this way. That's the surprise. But our God did, because it is our God's nature to do so. And that's the inevitability. Surprise and inevitability. That, my friends, is what the gospel is all about. God bless you all.